Okay guys, today we're going to work on making the Annie bag. You will need your exterior materials. I'm using this vinyl from My Punk Broidery with some coordinating colors also from My Punk Broidery. You will need your lining. I'm using waterproof canvas. And you will need your stabilizers. This is Peltex. And for the side stabilizer, I am using a 926 extra firm, but it's pretty lightweight. So those, you'll need to prepare all your pieces. For hardware, there's not a whole lot of hardware with this particular pattern. You will need your strap ends, 2 pieces of strap ends. You will need 2 magnetic snaps, 18 millimeter. And then you will need your D-rings, 1-inch D-rings, a tag if you so decide. You will need some rivets. And that is all of the hardware that you're going to need. And then some other things that you may need will be like double-sided tape, some snips, a hole punch, a marking tool. I use this air erasing pen. You'll need a ruler, some clips, lots and lots of clips, and a rivet press if you have one. Let's get started. Okay, so to start, we're gonna start with our flap interfacing. You want it with the straight edge at the top and the curve pointing to the left here. We're gonna draw a line at 1 1/4 inch from the flat edge. So I'm just gonna measure 1 1/4 inch, draw a line. Okay. And then we're gonna do another line at 3 3/8 inch. Just like that. Okay, so you got your 2 lines there. Now we're gonna fold and press on the lines. So the line, you're folding, so the line is on the top. Okay, we're gonna fold this one. Perfect. So when you fold it, you should be able to see that it folds like this. They're folding in the same direction. It's gonna look like this. Okay. Then we're gonna take this to the sewing machine and we're gonna sew as close as possible to these fold lines. And that's just gonna give it that extra shape that you want. So let's go do that. Okay, so here we are. You can see that I have sewn it at almost like 1/16, maybe even less. So it's very, very close. If you fold it out, you can see that the stitch line, you can see the stitches pulling because it's so close to the edge. But that helps maintain those folds to give it a nice, good fold on the flap. So go ahead and set that aside for now. Then you're gonna grab your exterior flap piece and we're gonna flip this upside down like this. We're gonna work with the bottom flat edge and the pointing to the left here, the flap. We're going to measure and mark a line at 1 1/2 inch. And then we're going to do another one at 3 3/4 inch. Perfect. Okay, and then we are going to place the flap interfacing onto the flap. You want to center it in between those lines. So these folds should be in between the lines that you drew. And then you're going to glue or use double-sided tape to hold that in place. Just like this. So I'm going to be using double-sided tape. So I'll just do that real quick. Okay. And we're going to go ahead and place that on here, centering it. Make sure that those folds are centered in between those lines. I like to eyeball it, but if you prefer, absolutely you can measure to make sure that you are centered correctly. There we go. And then we're just going to give that a good push like this. And we want to make sure that we fold the exterior up so it's folding with those lines, just like this. Now we're going to set this aside for the moment, and we're going to get the flap lining like this. And we're going to mark out the snap positions. You can follow the directions for measuring up and over, or you can use your pattern template to mark them out. And we're going to install the male side of the magnetic locks here. So I'm going to grab 2 of these, grab the male lock, use the washer to mark the cuts. Okay, and I'm going to grab some scrap interfacing. Okay. And I like to use scrap interfacing to do a little bit of extra stability behind those snaps. There's no real measurement there. I'm literally just using little scraps. I'm gonna mark where I'm gonna cut. And then I'm going to make the cuts. I'm just using a seam ripper here. Okay, so now we're going to insert the male snap into the cuts, add the interfacing, add the washer. I'm just using the scissors there to kind of push down, get it really nice and as flat as possible. Okay, and then I'm just going to use a little piece of duct tape on the backs to protect from any sort of rubbing. Just like this. And just like this. Perfect. I'm just going to cut this down out of the seam allowance. There we go. Perfect. All right, now we want to take our exterior and our lining, and we want to put them right sides together and clip all the way around. Okay, we're gonna leave this flat edge open. We're gonna go to the sewing machine and we're gonna sew around this flap with a 3/8 inch seam allowance all the way around, leaving this flat edge open. When you get to this corner, make sure you back stitch before and after the turn, just to give it a little more strength for when we cut close to it and turn, it'll give it that nice sharp point without really pulling out. All right, so let's go do that, sew around the flap. Okay, so we have sewn around the flap here. You can see I've back stitched at the corner. I back stitched at this corner as well. Now we're gonna cut the corners and trim down the seam allowance. I'm gonna use pinking shears. If you don't have pinking shears, you can just use regular scissors or make little cutouts, but I'm just gonna use pinking shears here and do this, cut right at that corner. I'm gonna do the same thing on this corner. Do the same thing at this corner. Do the same thing at this corner. And then I'm gonna actually trim down the whole seam allowance by half. Okay, get rid of this. All right, then we're going to turn the flap right side out. I like to start at the corner. That way I can make sure that my interfacing and my duct tape are all staying in place. And then I can just kind of take this and fold it right over that corner. All right, now I've gotten everything flattened and smoothed out, so I'm just going to clip around the edge. I'm just going to clip along this just to hold it in place. Okay, now we're going to go to the sewing machine and we are going to top stitch around the entire flap and we're going to baste across this opening. Okay. Okay, so you can see I've basted along the top and I've top stitched all the way around. So the flap is done for right now, so we're going to set this aside. Next, we're going to grab our handle panels, and on the back of both panels, you want to mark a center line. From this center line, we're going to apply double-sided tape or glue to either side of the line. Just like that. And I just use the ruler to make sure that it's adhered well. There we go. Then we're going to peel the layers, the backing off the tape. And we're going to fold those outer edges to that center line. Just like this, and press it down. And do that for both. I like to use clips to help just hold it that little extra bit. All right, so now we have both handle pieces done, and we're going to place them together, wrong sides together, line them up, and clip them in place. Okay, then we're going to take this to the sewing machine and top stitch around all 4 sides with 1/8 seam allowance. Okay, so here we have our handle has been top stitched. Now we're going to take our 2 D-rings and we are going to slide them into the middle of the handle. And then we're going to add our strap ends on each end. There we go. Make sure it's seated nice and well. You can see both ends here go all the way in. That's what you want. Perfect. And we're going to add our screws in. You can add a drop of super glue if you want to make sure that these aren't going to be coming off again. Okay, so there we have it. We have our strap end installed, screwed in place, D-rings in the center. We're going to put the other one on this other end. Make sure that your strap ends are facing the same direction. You don't want to put one on one way and the other on the other way. That is not a good idea. Okay, and once that's on good and tight, we'll screw that one in. Okay, so that one's on, and our handle is just about done. So now we're going to grab our ruler and we are going to measure and mark a dot 2 inches in from the short end and 1 1/4 inch in. Let me grab my pen. Okay, so let's go 2 inches. You're measuring from the end of that strap end. 2 inches in, make sure it's nice and centered, and 1 1/4 inch. I'm going to do this on both sides. 2 inch, 1 1/4 inch. Okay. We're going to punch holes on those marks made. Okay, so we've got our holes punched just like that. And we're going to grab our flap and with the flap right side up, we're going to measure up 2 1/4 inches, just like this. And we're going to place this handle right here. And that should be somewhat centered. So that's going to be 2 inches. We're going to measure 2 inches up and place that handle right there. 2 inches up, place the handle. You're going to notice that it's pretty centered right between those 2 folds. We're going to take this and we're going to make sure that the other side is at 2 inches also. Perfect. And with this connector lined up with the edge, we are going to mark down through those 2 holes like that. And then we're going to come to this side and again keeping this at 2 inches up from that flat edge, lining it up with that edge. You can see it's lined up. We're going to mark through those holes. Okay, now we're going to punch holes at those marks. Okay, I'll go back through, make sure that they really punched all the way through. Okay, for some reason it is not. There we go. There we go. That time it did. You can see it punched through. All right, so we are going to get our rivets and your press. And we're going to insert a rivet into this first one, the first hole on the handle. And we're going to put it through that first hole on the flap so that the end lines up. I'm going to flip it over, push it through, put the cap on, and then we are going to go ahead and press that rivet into place, making sure that your handle is staying nice and flush with the side of the bag. Okay, so our first rivet is placed. Now we're going to take that D-ring and slide it all the way over as close to that rivet as possible. Take another rivet, put it through the second hole, through the flap, put the cap on it, and press that into place. You'll see that we have that D-ring caught in between there, and it's nice and level. We're gonna flip this over and we're gonna do the same thing, and you're gonna notice that when we line this first rivet up into the flap that lines this up, you're going to have this little handle part for you to put your hand in and carry the bag. Flip it over, make sure it goes through, put the cap on and give it a press. Pull that D-ring all the way over. Get another rivet. Go through that second hole. Put the cap on and press it in place. There we go. So now your handle is attached, your D-rings are attached, and your flap is almost ready to be attached. So let's start with the exterior now. Let's set the flap aside and pull out your exterior pieces. All right, so we have all of our exterior pieces. We're gonna start with the side panels, and we're going to mark a line 1/2 inch from every edge. So we're gonna do this long edge, we're gonna do the top, this long edge. We're gonna do both legs at the bottom. Okay, and then we're going to do the other side of the leg. So your piece should look like this, where you have 1/2 inch marked on every edge. Do that for the second panel. Okay, and set those aside. Grab your base. We're gonna do the same thing, 1/2 on every side. Okay, set that aside. Grab your main panels, and we're going to do 3/4 of an inch. Note the change, it's not 1/2. We're going to do 3/4 of an inch along the top edge only. Then we're going to do 1/2 inch along the 3 remaining sides. And repeat this for the last panel. 3/4 inch at the top and 1/2 inch along both sides and the bottom. Perfect. Now that we have everything marked, we're going to go to our side panels again. And we're going to use glue or double-sided tape, whatever your preference is, and go along the outside edge of every side, just kind of keeping in between the marks. Do that for the other one. So you can see that I've got tape along all edges. We're going to do that for the base. And the last side. Perfect. Okay. And we're going to do that for the main panels. So when we're done, all of the exterior pieces of the bag should have lines drawn on them and tape along the edges. Okay, and once again, set everything aside and we'll work with the side panels. All right, here's where you're going to want lots of clips. We're going to start by taking the backing off the paper and folding, starting with one long side, folding over to meet that line. And then I like to clip it in place, just to give it that extra hold. We're going to do this on the other side. Okay, then we're going to do this on the top, like so. When you get to those corners, pinch and trim. repeat on the other side. All right, now we're to the tricky part. All right, once we have the sides and the tops folded, we're going to come down and we're going to work on the bottom here. So to get these sides to fold nicely, you're going to do a 45-degree cut right here in the corner, about 1/4 inch. You can measure if you'd like, just like that. And we're going to peel the backing off the paper. And fold to the line. And that cut should allow you to fold without pulling on the other edge. We'll fold this over. And again, this is a tricky part, but we're going to fold this bottom up to the line and we're going to cut these corners just like we did at the top. And it is tricky because it's a very small corner, but it is doable. Just like this. And we're going to clip it to hold it. Okay, we're going to repeat that on the other side. So come over here. Up. Over. Here. We're going to fold here and clip. Just like that. And then again, use clips to hold it in place. So you should have all edges folded. We're going to repeat that for the other side panel. Make sure you snip off the excess at the corners. Okay. Get down here again and do that 45-degree angle. working down the leg, fold both sides in. And if you need to cut a little further, you can. Fold up the bottom. And you can see those two corners that pop up. We're just going to trim those off. Repeat. Okay, and then clip everything into place. Okay, just like that. Now we're going to set those aside. We're going to take the bottom and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to fold it to the line on each side, clipping down the corners. Okay, and we're going to do the same thing on the main panels as well. All right, now that we have all the folding done, we're going to use the bottom panel and the side panels. Get the other panels out of the way. And we're going to put them wrong sides together, and you want to center them. And so you see the legs stick out above the base, and that is correct. We want that. So center them together and then clip along the inner edge of the side panel. Okay. Perfect. Just like that. So you can see it's lined up. The legs stick out. That's normal. Okay. Do that for both sides. Okay, lined up, legs stick out. Okay, we're going to go to the sewing machine and we're going to stitch from this corner to this corner at 1/8 inch seam allowance. Do that on both sides. Okay, so we're here at the sewing machine and we are going to stitch from one corner to the other corner. And back stitch at the start and stop. Trim down the threads. All right, so you'll see that we stitched from one corner to the other. Okay, then we're going to take this leg on one side and we're going to stretch it so it meets up with this other end of the base, like that. We're going to do it on this side too. So just take this leg and twist it down to meet the other end of the base. Just like that. And then we're going to stitch across that from the edge to the end of your stitching line, from your stitching line to the end. Back stitch at the start and stop. It can be a little bit tricky to sew, but it is doable. So we're just going to do this. Back stitch at the start and stop. And sew right to our previous line of stitching. And do the same thing here. We're going to sew from our previous stitching to the edge. Okay. Threads. You will see that we now have the side panel stitched to the base with a little kind of fold here at those leg corners. And that is what we want. Okay, I'm just going to clean up these threads, but we're going to do the same thing on the other side. So we're going to come over here. And if you're feeling confident enough, you can actually just pull this across before you even stitch that center. Like this. Just like that. And stitch all the way across. We're going to do that on this side. Fold it down. I think my clips are nearing the end of their lifespan because they are all popping on me. There we go. Okay, so you can see I've got it folded. And I'm just going to stitch all the way across. Back stitch at the start and stop. And if you feel more comfortable doing it the center first and then twisting and then stitching again, that's absolutely fine. Either way works. Just go slow. it should look like this, where it's folded down, stitched across, and there's your bottom. Okay, now let's go back over to the table for the next part. Okay, so we have our stitched piece here. What you're going to do is open up these side panels, and you're going to fold these legs so that they follow the base. It helps if your double-sided tape actually sticks. Mine is not doing a very good job right now. So we're going to do this. Get that corner still clipped. All right, so we're going to take our main panel and we're going to start with the center. We're going to line it up with the base center. And clip. We're lining it up, wrong sides together. One of the main panels can be the front or the back, whichever you want to start with. And we're lining it up with the center of the base and clipping. And we're going to go right along that entire edge, clipping as we go. And you will notice that the side panel leg will extend to complete that main panel there. So it all fits perfectly. So again, that leg extends along the base to meet the other end of the main panel. You see that? Whoop. Okay. So here we have the main panel connected to the base and the side panel leg. And we are going to continue by folding that leg around so that you can continue clipping up the side of the panel. Now, the thickness of your materials and the stiffness is really going to dictate how challenging this may be for you. But you will see that you went down the side and across the bottom. And we're going to go up the other side here by just pulling the side panel down like this to meet the other edge. Just like that. So you got your main panel connected to the sides and the bottoms. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to stitch with a 1/8 inch seam allowance down, across, and back up again. Back stitch at the start and stop. Okay, so here we go. We are going to start stitching from one side with a 1/8 inch seam allowance. gonna pivot at this corner. And so right across the seam, and again, stitch right over that seam. Pivot, and sew up the other side. Trim off those threads, and then let's go back to the table. All right, so you can see we have the front stitched to the side and the bottom, and what's happening is that leg of the side panel is straightening and causing the bottom to have that nice curve so that it stands up. Okay, so now what we're going to do is the same thing on the other side. We're going to take our main panel, starting with the center. We're going to clip them together. Make sure that this corner came undone here, so just clipping it to hold it in place. So, okay, so then we're gonna come here. You should get all the way to the corner, and the corner should match up. Okay, just like that. And then we're going to line up the sides again. Okay, do the same thing for this side. Okay. just like that. And then we're going to go back to the sewing machine, and again we're going to sew with 1/8 inch seam allowance. We're going to sew down, across, and back up again, back stitching at the start and stop. Trim off those threads. And then let's go back to the table. Okay, now that we've sewn our bag, we're going to take our ruler, and on the side that will be your back, you're going to draw a line 1 inch down from that folded edge. can see the line there. So this is my back, and I did a line 1 inch down from the folded edge. You're going to take your flap and you're going to put it right sides together, lining up that raw edge with that line. We're going to take it over to the sewing machine. You're going to sew across with a 1/8 inch seam allowance, and then again with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Okay, so you actually want to sew as close to the edge as you can get when you're attaching it to the back for the first time. So here I've sewn 1/8 inch and 1/4 inch. I was able to get to the edges. It is challenging, especially on a domestic machine, but it is doable. Just go slow. You really got to squish the bag as you go through, but you want to go as close to the edge as you can. Okay, now that we have that sewn in place, we're going to flip this up like this. And then we're going to mark 3/4 inch in on each side. Okay. And then we're going to go back to the sewing machine and we're going to top stitch along this seam. And you want to go from that 3/4 inch mark to this 3/4 inch mark. And this is where you want to start and stop. Make sure you back stitch or pull your threads to the back. But that's where you want to start and stop because we're going to add a rivet in here on each side. So let's go do that. Okay, so this is going to be a little bit tricky. I am going to be squishing, pulling, and fighting with this bag to do this because I have a domestic machine. I did raise it up on a book here. If you have 2 books, that would be really helpful. But let's see what we can do here. And I'm probably going to be bumping the phone as I go, and I apologize. Get it under the needle. Make sure my needle's up high so it doesn't scratch the vinyl as I'm getting it situated. Okay, starting at that first mark. I'm going to go ahead and put my needle in. I'm just going to go slow. Back stitch. And again, you do got to fight with your bag a little bit. Go. Pull it off. Okay. There's thread. Okay, so then the next thing that we're gonna do is measure up 1/2 inch from this fold, or 3/8 inch from the line we just did, and we're going to do another stitch line. So let's see here if I can show you. We're going to do 1/2 inch from that fold. It's really hard to do it on the sewing machine, so let's see if I can do it this way. There we go. And then we are going to stitch again right on that line. Back in again. Off and snip the threads. All right, so let's take this back over to the table and go to the next step. Okay, so now we are back, and you can see that we have sewn those 2 lines on the flap. Now we want to measure 3/8 in, 3/8 of an inch in, 3/8 of an inch up, and make a mark. And that is where our rivet is going to go. And we want to do this on both sides, 3/8 of an inch up from the fold on the back, and 3/8 of an inch in. Make a dot, and that's where we're going to put our rivet. So get out your rivet press again. Get out the rivets and get out the hole punch. Okay, so let's see here. Not sure if I can do it with my hole punch or not, but we're gonna see. Oh yeah. I'm just gonna punch a hole right at that location. Do it on this other side. Okay. And then we're going to go ahead and install those rivets. And it's just extra security on the flap. Make sure you're going all the way through, not the side panel, through the back panel. Let's go ahead and set that rivet. There we go. There's that first one. Okay, let's set that second one. Put that in there. Okay, there we go. Rivets are set. I promise that was the trickiest part of this bag, is putting on the flap like that. So now that we have the flap on, I'm just going to temporarily take my clips off so that I can mark the location of where I want the magnetic snaps to go. So your flap should have those folds in it already. So you want to get those folds situated so that it closes properly with those folds. And then you want to clip, grab a clip here, a bigger clip. You want to clip this side so that it's flush on this side. So make sure that that top is nice and boxed and centered. And then with this side lined up, clip it in place. That's going to hold it for you so that you can look underneath and make your mark. So here, if we push a little bit, right here is my snap. We're going to push a little bit. Oops. Right there. And I'm going to pull it up, and you can, I don't know if you can see that, but there's kind of an indent there. So I'm just going to make a mark. That's where that snap goes. And then I'm going to locate the second one, which is right here. I'm going to come over here and again push it in, and that's going to make a little divot. You can see it there. And I'm just going to make a little mark there. And that's where we're going to install our snaps. So I'm going to go through and put all my clips back on here, just because I don't like having to fight the folds. And of course I used a thicker vinyl, so okay. So now we have our marks, and we're going to go ahead and get the female part, and we're going to use the washer to mark where we're making our cuts. Just like that. Okay, and then I'm going to grab my seam ripper here, and I'm just going to poke a hole and make a small slice along that line. Do this on the other side as well. Okay, and then we're going to put the snap on in both locations. Okay. Then in the back here, we're going to put the washer and fold those prongs. Same with this other one. Put the washer in. Fold those prongs. Okay. And I like to just take something firm and really press on the back to get those prongs down nice and as flat as possible. Okay, and then use a little duct tape to cover up the backs of those prongs. Yeah. That. Perfect. And our exterior bag is done. Let's set that aside. And from here, it's quite easy. So let's go ahead and grab our lining. Okay, I got my lining. We're gonna start by taking the slip pockets, 2 slip pockets and the 2 slip pocket trims. We're going to put those slip pocket pieces right sides together. We're going to clip around the sides and the bottom. Do this for both. Okay, then we're going to go to the sewing machine and sew down the side, across the bottom, up the other side with a 1/4 inch. Do that on both slip pockets. Okay, so you can see that I have sewn these at a 1/4 inch. So now I'm just going to cut the corners. I do recommend back stitching at the start and stop of each corner just to give it a little bit more stability as well as protection for when you're clipping. So clip all the corners just like that. Do that for both pockets. Okay, then we're going to turn those pockets right side out. Like this. I like to use this metal chopstick again to really get those corners out the best that I can. Okay. Roll that seam. Okay. And then just clip along that raw edge top because we're going to baste that closed. Repeat this for the second slip pocket. Then grab your trim pieces and draw a line along the center of the back. I usually do it when I'm cutting out any trim pieces, so mine's already there, but you want to draw a line down the length of the center on the wrong side. Then we're going to go baste this, and then we're going to attach the trim. So let's go do that. Okay, so we're over here at the sewing machine and we're just gonna baste this top edge closed. I think it just makes it a little bit easier to work with. Then we're going to take our trim pieces and we are going to add some double-sided tape. Right in the center on each side. So you've got your center line, you're going to do between the center line and the edge, just add a piece of very thin, I'm using 1/8 inch double-sided tape. We're going to do that on both pieces. Just like that. Okay, and then starting with one, I'm going to peel the backing off the bottom. There we go. And you're going to take your pocket and you're going to place it just under that line that you drew. You want to leave room for the fold. Here you go, you can see it's just under that line. Then we're going to take the backing off the other side and we're going to fold it over. Just like that. I like to add clips just to hold it in place. Make sure nothing's gonna wiggle or come loose. Then we're going to sew along that raw edge with 1/8 inch seam allowance and then sew along the folded edge with a 1/8 inch seam allowance as well. Down those threads. Okay, and then you want to trim that trim piece so that it's flush with the pocket. Okay, so then you're left with this. Okay, let's do that again on this one, only this time I'm going to add a small tag. So, oops, sorry. We're going to add it just under the line, just like we did last time. Just under the line. Take this line off. Fold it over. And this time, right here at the end, I'm going to add my little handmade tag there. And just fold that over on that. And use clips to hold it in place. And we're going to do the same thing. Top stitch along the raw edge and the fold. Again, cut those ends so that they are even with the side. Okay. All right, and then let's place this on the lining pieces. Okay, so let's get these put on the main lining. So grab your main lining pieces, and we are going to mark the centers on the tops and the bottom. So that just gives us a good okay. And on these lining pieces, we are going to draw a line 3/4 inch down on the back. Okay. And then I'm going to fold it and just kind of give it a little crease, just so I know I can see where I'm going. Then I'm going to take one of the pockets. I'm also going to give it a crease. This. And then I'm going to go 1 inch down. And center my pocket. Just like that. Now, however you attach yours to hold it in place, I do use pins on my waterproof canvas. But I like to make sure that it's really not going to go anywhere until it's sewn on. Okay, so we're going to do that on the other side as well. So just make a little crease with that half. Take your other one and make another crease. And 1/2 inch down and centered. Place the pocket. Okay, now we are going to go and sew these on with 1/8 inch seam allowance across the sides and across the bottom. All right, so I've sewn these on, so I'm going to take these pins out. Okay. And I'm going to flip these lining panels right sides together, line them up, and clip the sides, just the sides. Okay, now we're going to go over to the sewing machine. We're going to sew this side and this side with a 3/8 inch seam allowance. And then we will top stitch these as well. So let's go to the sewing machine. Alright, so now we're going to open this up, like this, open the seam, and we are going to top stitch down both sides of the seam to really get that to set open. Okay? So you're going to go slow, and you're just going to kind of work the lining out of the way as you go. The important thing is to really make sure that that seam is open underneath. Back up the other side. Come off the threads. And we're going to do the same thing to the other side seam, open it up, and top stitch on both sides. I just keep feeling underneath to make sure that seam is open. Sorry. Come back up the other side. Perfect. Now we're going to align the bottom of the lining. Let's see if I can raise this up for you to see a little better. There we go. We're going to align the bottom. We're going to sew along the bottom with a 3/8 inch seam allowance. Now that our bottom edge is sewn, we're going to trim down the seam allowance, but you want to leave a little bit at each corner so that you have a seam that you can open. So go ahead and trim down, and I'm going right down to about 1/8 of an inch. And except for the very beginning and the very end, you can see I left them at the same seam allowance. Then we're going to take this and we're going to box the corners and open that seam allowance that you left and clip them in place. Do this for both sides. And we're going to sew these with a 3/8 inch seam allowance. And do the other side. The seam opened or closed, so I'm going to open that seam back up again. Make sure that that seam stays open. Perfect. Then trim down this seam allowance to about 1/8 of an inch. Do it on both sides. Okay, now let's go back over to the table. Okay, so now we're over here, the lining is done and ready. So we are going to go ahead and fold the edge down to meet that line that we drew, that 3/4 inch line. I'm gonna go ahead and do that, go all the way around. And the fact that we opened up these seams on the corner should really help make this a nice smooth transition with little bulk. Okay, so now we've got that top edge completely folded down. You're going to grab your exterior bag and you're going to decide which side, if you have a preference, is going to be the back. I prefer my tag to be in the back, so I'm going to put that facing the back. I'm just going to put that lining down in there nice and evenly. Perfect. And you're going to line up your centers. And that side seam should be right in the center of the side. And then you're just going to clip around, making adjustments as needed. Should fit perfectly. Okay, we're going to go to the sewing machine and we're going to sew around this whole edge with a 1/8 inch seam allowance. Okay, I like to start in the back. This will be tricky because this bag is fairly structured, but we can do it. So start in the back, and you can pull your threads through if you'd like, or back stitch. I prefer to just do a little back stitch. And just go slow. Make sure all your pieces are lining up. And we're going to be stitching right over this seam. And we're going to stitch right over the seam. And we're going to cut those threads. And then I actually like to burn them. Okay. And shape your bag. And close your bag. And then you can add your chain or your strap if you made a crossbody strap. And we have officially finished. Your bag is complete.